This is 3.2, other types of means. So we're going to talk about a couple other types of means. You have your typical mean that you're used to, and then we have a weighted mean, or a mean of a frequency distribution, which we'll talk about again later, actually. But just introducing it now. These different data values have certain frequencies to account for. Basically, they occur more than once. If you remember when we talked about the GPA, that was actually a weighted mean. That's an example of one. So we have our formula. The mean equals the sum of x times f divided by the sum of f. Okay, where x is your data, f is its frequency. So we multiply basically how many times the value. And then we have to divide by all the scores. A lot of people get this part wrong, right? It's not the different types of scores, it's how many scores do we have total. So that's why it's the sum of all the frequencies. So my mean is x bar. That is, remember, the sample mean. And then we have mu, which is the population mean. Okay, so you're going to need to start recognizing those variables. So, let me look at AP scores. Find the weighted mean. Okay, so we have 5 AP scores with each one's relative frequency. So we start off by multiplying the score times its frequency on the top. And then on the bottom, we add up all the frequencies. Right? So it's the sum of all the data points divided by how many there are total. Remember, frequency represents how many of each type. So we add up the frequencies, get a total. So we get 163 divided by 55, which you calculate, use a calculator, 163 divided by 55, 3.0. Okay, so the average of score of 3, basically. Okay, so all of these people, so make sure you understand what this means. Frequency is how many? So 5 people got a 1, 13 people got a 2, 22 people got a 3, 9 people got a 4, and 6 people got a 5. Okay, so that's one way. Other way is actually writing it out, right? If we found the weighted mean, the average price for this per item for this meal that we're looking at, 6 large fries at $2.50 each, 3 large drinks for $3 each, 7 burgers for $3.50 each, and 2 milkshakes for $4.50 each. Okay, be careful because you understand what's the frequency and what's the value, the data value. Okay, frequency is always how many we bought. So that would be the 6, 3, 7, and 2. And that's how many. So those are our frequencies. And then we have our actual data values, which is the price. $2.50, $3, $3.50, and $4.50. So we have $2.50 times its frequency plus $3 times its frequency plus $3.50 times its frequency plus $4.50 times its frequency over the sum of the total number of items. We had 6 plus 3 plus 7 plus 2. Okay. So I'm going to do this all in one. So add them all up on the top, divide by the total number on the bottom, and make sure you realize when you're talking about money, you better have 2 decimal places, dollars and cents. So average of $3.19. Make that more clear. Okay. The other type we're going to look at is the geometric mean, or the mean rate of return. Okay, so it's the average product of the data. So technically, the mean you're used to is called an arithmetic mean, okay, which means sum. It's the sum of the average sum. The geometric mean is the average product. So, depending on your calculator, you have a couple different ways. You either have to be able to use an nth root or a 1 over n power. Okay, so in previous math classes, hopefully you learned that the fractional exponent gives you the different types of roots. Okay, so these are the same thing. You're going to use one or the other depending on your calculator. Some calculators allow you to change the type of root, some don't, and then you have to use an exponent. Okay, so you do have to understand a little bit of math. All right, to do this, we got to understand that when we look at percentages like this, usually you're talking about investments, okay? Some sort of investment value. So when we have percents, the positives are gains, the negatives are loss. So I have an 8% gain, a 21% gain, a 5% gain, a 4% loss, and a 14.5% gain. Okay, so I want the geometric mean, in this case, the mean rate of return. Okay, notice they mean the same thing. So if you see something asked for a mean rate of return or a geometric mean, it's the same thing. Okay, we have to relate to 100%. Okay, because we're saying how much did I go up, basically. So if I gained 8%, that means I have 108% of my original value. I went up by 8%. 100% represents no change, right? If I had $5 and I kept 100% of that in my investment, I still have $5. So 100% represents no change. If I'm over 100%, that's a gain. So if I had $5 and I had a gain of 8%, so I can type that into a calculator, I would get $5.40. So that's a 108% of my original amount. Okay, so we're going to use, we always convert to decimal, so we got to move the decimal place 2 spots to the left to convert into a decimal. We don't ever use percents in our calculations. Okay, so 21% means I have 121% of my original amount. I've gone up 21%. Remember that 100 means stays the same. If you have 100%, it stays the same. So if it's a gain, it's got to be over 100. If it's a loss, it has to be less than 100. Move the decimal twice. Okay, 5% gain means 105%. Move the decimal twice, 1.05. 4% loss means I'm 4% under 100. So that's 96%, right? I'm 4% below 100%. So 0.96. And 14.5% gain is 114.5%. Or 1.145. Move the decimal twice to the left to convert. Okay. Then I have to find the geometric mean. The geometric mean, you multiply all the numbers. So I'm going to multiply all these decimals together and take the root based on the number of items I have. So in this case, I have 5 items. So I'm going to take the 5th root. So multiplying all of them together on the inside. This is where you'll definitely want a calculator. Okay. All right. So if you have a calculator that lets you do a different type of root, that's what you do. if you don't, so my calculator actually doesn't let me. I have to write it out as a fractional exponent. You're going to want to practice this right now. Please practice it with me. So I want the 1/5 power. So I'm going to make it look exactly like it does here, except when you put your power in, put parentheses around it. So I'm typing in my calculator, 1.08, 1.21, 1.05, 0.96, 1.145. Close the parentheses there. Raise that whole thing. And then in parentheses, put 1/5 power. Okay. And you should get 1.08566. Okay. Make sure you try that and understand it. Okay. So that would be, right, in percent form now, 108.57%. Or I guess 0.5, I won't change it yet, 0.566%. Okay, just moving the decimal twice to the right, that puts it into percent form. Okay. But we want to know, what is our average gain or loss? So I need to convert that into what the original thing was, right? Gain or loss. So if it's over 100%, that's a gain. If it's under, it's a loss. So this is 8.57, because I'm going to round now, percent gain. Right? That's how much more than 100% I had. So on average, over the years, there was an 8.5% gain each year on average. All right. So I go through this one a lot faster. So I have 2 losses and 2 gains now. So 1.12. So 6% loss is 94% or 0.94. 3%, 103%, that's 3% gain, so 1.03. 17% loss is 83%, because that's 17 under 100, or 0.83. Okay, so I have the 4th root now of 1.12 times 0.94 times 1.03 times 0.83. Okay, or if you are like me and you don't have different roots that you can use, so if you can change your index of your root, you would just use that. Make sure you're not just using a square root, because that would be wrong. So it's the 1/4 power, and I always like to put parentheses around it, the power, to remind myself that when I type it in, I need parentheses around it. Okay, so I would type that in now, and when you do, you get 0.974, rounded to the 3rd decimal. Okay. Move my decimal twice to the right. I get 97.4%. Okay, now that is under 100. So that means I have a loss. I have to figure out how much. So I subtract 100 minus that, and you get 2.6% loss. 2.6% loss. Okay, example 5. So we have a new formula here, you can see, so it's going to be a little different. Okay, it still has the nth root, so we're still going to deal with how many years, basically in this case, how many investment periods, and usually an investment period consists of a year. So we would take the final price you had, the final amount you had, divided by the initial amount you had, take the root based on how many years, and that'll give you your average rate of return. So purchase stock for $9,572, so that's the initial amount. Sold a stock, so that's the final amount, $33,000. So we have 33,456 over 9,572. Okay, and then we have to figure out how many years. So we take 2010 minus 1999, and you'd find 11 years. So that's the 11th year. How many years have you been investing, right? Each one of these before consisted of a year. So when I had 4 of them, that consisted of 4 years. In this case, we actually have to subtract how far it is from 1999 to 2010. It's 11 years. Okay. So remember, if you don't have your root, you would write out the fractional exponent. Okay, whichever one you can use. 1/11th is the exponent here. So I divide those in parentheses, raise it to the power of 1/11 in parentheses, and I'm going to round, so 1.120. Move the decimal twice to the right. So it's 112%. I can write 0.0, but I don't need it. So this is a 12% gain, because I'm 12% over 100. Remember, 100 is your break even. If you're over it, you gained. If you're under it, you lost. So in this case, I had a 12% gain each year. So throughout the 11 years, I had an average of 12% gain. So same thing with this next one. So this is a 9-year gap. So it's going to be 9th root. Started with $800, ended with $2,000. Okay. So if you need to write it with a fractional exponent, do that. 2,000 divided by 800 to the 1/9th power. Type that into your calculator. You should get 1.107, which is 110.7%. Right? Move the decimal twice to the right. Okay, so how much more than this one's bigger, so how much more than 100%? 10.7% gain. So on average each year, I gained 10.7%. Okay, so make sure you do your 3-sentence summary.